So we're going to have some discussions with some leaders in the future by three women leaders today. Our first one is, our first moderator is no stranger to blog her. I think we all know her from her work on CNN and her unbelievable documentaries, Black in America and Latino in America. Soledad O'Brien is known for her work as a journalist and as CEO of Starfish Media, but she is also the co-founder of the Starfish Foundation, an organization that is dedicated to getting young women to and through college. With her today are two of the scholars in the program. I can't wait to hear more. Come join us.
No? Yes. Good morning, everybody. I've actually talked a third scholar into joining us, so I'm going to introduce you to them and tell you a little bit about our foundation and then chat with these young ladies about some of the things that they've been going through and experiencing. My name is Soledad O'Brien. I've been a journalist for almost 30 years, and it's been a wonderful experience, and truly being a journalist is what led me to start with my husband the Starfish Foundation, which we began after Hurricane Katrina. It was a really frustrating experience as a reporter because some of the things that seemed so practical to me just weren't being done. For example, somebody would need a new roof for their business. If they could get $1,000 from insurance to pay for the roof, they could open up their business and start making money again, and they'd get a check for $892.75, which meant they didn't quite have enough money to get the roof done. They couldn't quite open up their business. It was always this kind of, sort of halfway done thing, and it just seemed so annoying. I thought there's so many pragmatic things you could do. You could actually just help people fund specific things. It's what led us, in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, to start a foundation that would literally pay for young women to go to and through school. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary gala last night. And about 7 years of working in New Orleans, a couple of years ago, we expanded to cover young women around the United States. So the three scholars who are with us this morning is Ariana Quiñones. She is are you a senior now, going into the senior year at Smith College. Wonderful young woman with a wonderful story. You'll hear from her in just a moment. Next to her is Sheba Turk. Sheba was one of our early scholars from New Orleans. She's now an anchor woman at WWL-TV in New Orleans. It's great to have you, Sheba. And Cameron Huff is an associate producer with Quartz Media. It's great to have you as well. I've known Cameron for a really long time because her mom is a dear friend of mine. So I thought what we would do today is talk a little bit about our foundation, and then you'd have a chance to listen to our young women. I was sort of pissed off, and that's why I started the foundation. I mean, maybe I don't know if that's a great reason or a horrible reason, but I just felt frustrated. Like, you have all these really intelligent young women who are striving for an education, and there was no way to fill the gap, which sometimes was financial, but pretty quickly we realized there were mentoring needs and sometimes other kinds of issues around just guidance and help. And so as I met these three young women, we started building our foundation. We started with one young woman in New Orleans. Today we have 25 active scholars every year who are going through school, and 4 grad members as well, and we continue to grow our scholarship. And I'll tell you, before we start our conversation, the story that for me kind of shaped it all, which is why we called it the Starfish Foundation. I was working on a documentary in Haiti, and in Haiti post-earthquake, and even pre-earthquake, were evangelical Christians who were working and running orphanages. And so I would, in this documentary, since we were focused on child orphans, I was asking people, like, God, how do you do this job? There are 500,000 orphans in Haiti. And you have, 30 kids in your orphanage over here, and this one has 55, and you have 17. Like, with all due respect, kind of a waste of time, right? These are a drop in the bucket of what the problem is. And the missionaries said this to me, which really shaped how I thought about philanthropy in general. And they would say, well, Soledad, it's the starfish story. I was like, well, what's the starfish story? I have no idea. The starfish story. A boy is walking along the beach, and the tide's gone out, and all these starfish have been stranded when the tide gone out. And so the kid starts picking up starfish and throwing them back into the water. And a man comes up to him and says, "What are you doing? This beach goes on for miles. There are literally 1 million starfish on the beach. This is a complete waste of your time." And the kid picks up a starfish and says, "Well, I guess it matters to this one," and throws it in. And to me, the sort of moral of the story was sometimes helping people individually can have a huge ripple. It does matter. You know, starting very small in your own corner can make a huge difference, not only in that starfish's life, but also can inspire other people to do similar things. So I guess this morning I'm introducing you to some of my starfish at the Starfish Foundation. So I'm going to begin, if I can, with Ariana, and I'd like each of you, though, to answer the same question, which is, fill me in on where you are now. I know you're at Smith. You've just come back from Bali. Studying in Bali, which I believe the foundation helped fund. Tell me a little bit about what you're studying and how it's been going for you at Smith.
Well, I'm going into my senior year at Smith, and I'm an English major, which is a lot of fun. And I'm almost there.
Yay, English majors, yes.
And I'm very happy. Smith has been a great school for me, and I'm going in as the president of my house next year, so I'm super excited for that. I did just return from Bali. My body is still on Bali time, so I'm lucky to be here. And I did a study abroad program through John Jay College. I took 2 psychology courses. I did actually do work. While I was staring out at the beauty of Bali. And it was just an amazing experience. And I really wouldn't have been there without the foundation. I went to them for help, and they were so immediate, so helpful. And I was able to leave the country and travel and do something that not many people in my family have had the opportunity to do. And I got to go to temples and run around with monkeys and study while I'm looking out at rice paddies and meet amazing people. And so it was just a beautiful experience that I never thought I would be able to have at 20 years old.
Sheba, you are the host of a show, for those of you not from New Orleans, there's a show called The 504, and Sheba is the anchor of that show. I met Sheba when I met her when she was a journalism student, and then eventually she came to be my intern at CNN. So tell me, Sheba, a little bit about what you're doing now and your career goals.
Well, right now I am a morning anchor for our CBS affiliate in New Orleans, and I also host more of an entertainment style show at night that comes on locally back at home, our sister station to WWL. I'm also a mentor now through the program that I was, a scholar through 4 years ago, which is absolutely amazing. My ultimate goal is to have a nationally syndicated talk show.
All right, Oprah. All right. Cameron, you are working in as an associate producer. Having been an associate producer, I know what that means, which is a lot of running around and everything from fetching coffee to writing scripts. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing. Are you loving it? Where would you like to be down the road?
Yeah, so I was actually really lucky to have a job right out of college for a startup, which was Quartz, which is Atlantic Media's global business news publication. And I currently am responsible for the programming side of all of our international conferences. So what that means is that I'm doing a lot of speaker recruitment. There's a lot of great travel. I've just been really lucky to work at such a young company and watch it grow and have people who believe in me and want to watch me grow there too. So that's been a really great part of my last 2 years.
That's fantastic. So when we all met, I think it's fair to say that there were some challenges. I actually met Ariana when she was giving a talk thanking her mom, and it was literally everybody at the table was crying. This is how we decided to take Ariana as a scholar. When she was telling this, can I tell the story a smidge of it and you'll finish? When she was telling the story about coming out to the nuns, right there, that's a kind of a big sentence, coming out to the nuns, I'll repeat that, at her high school and running for the presidency of the school. And so to me, it was just a sign about how much guts and courage and just, sort of a sense of just hanging in there and pushing for what you want and believe that we thought would make Ariana a great scholar. So will you share that story with us a little bit and some of the concerns and the fears that you had about that experience?
I was very fortunate to have a family that was extremely accepting, and as I was growing up, it was very challenging to kind of work through my sexual orientation and what that meant, and I went to an all-girls Catholic school, And you think that being surrounded by all women would help, but it really didn't. And when I turned 16, 16-year-old girls, everybody wants a boyfriend, everybody wants to be dating, and I realized I didn't. And it kind of got to a point where I knew that this was something I needed to do something about. And coming out was terrifying, especially in a Catholic school. I told one teacher, and I was terrified, and she was not a nun, but she was super welcoming and super accepting. And I was somebody who was very active in my school. And I was terrified that coming out would change the way people in my school saw me. But I think after a while you reach a point where you say, this is not who I am, I'm not being genuine, and that's what my mother told me. She said, I never want you to be anything but authentic. I want you to be your authentic self. And that's the kind of mindset I went into my junior and senior year of college, of high school, and was just kind of like, I know I want to be a leader in this school, and I want people to know that there isn't just one type of person in this school. And I knew that I was someone who could help relay that message and also be my authentic self.
We are so proud to have you as a scholar. It's been fantastic. When I met Sheba, she was a student at UNO, having had to drop out of NYU because, as she described it, even as she was heading off to NYU, she knew her parents, who, like a lot of people in New Orleans, had lost a lot in Hurricane Katrina, really couldn't afford it. What was that like? I mean, in a way, I think anybody here who has ever felt like you don't have enough money to cover something, that you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, I know going in, I am screwed. What was it? What did it feel like for you, and what were you thinking about as money became a huge challenge for you?
Sadly, that feeling was very normal for my family and my life. We were always running out of money for things. And I grew up with a family that just didn't have a sense of, this is what we can afford and this is what we'll do, and we'll say no to these things. My parents were very supportive of my education. They were excited that I loved school. So when I got accepted to NYU and wanted to go, they didn't want to tell me no, even though they absolutely could not afford it. They probably could not have afforded to send me to any college, let alone NYU, even though I had a scholarship. So I went anyway, being young, having no idea of what it really meant to be able to afford college. And after being there for a year and a half, I literally flew home for Christmas break and did not have the money to fly back. That was it. My stuff was stuck up here. I had really great friends who went and put it in storage for me. It was just a mess. I had absolutely no money, and then all of your kind of papers get tied up because you owe money to a school, thousands of dollars. We're talking like tens of thousands of dollars. And so you can't go enroll in another college, really. So I've had a lot of blessings, including this foundation and you, and one of them was somehow my mom got them to release at least my paperwork so that I could continue and re-enroll in UNO. But it really was one of the hardest periods of my life, and I don't really talk about that with a lot of people because I felt like I was working so hard. And I did have friends who were kind of just like, college, whatever, and I was working so hard. And it just wasn't going in my favor. So I absolutely stayed out of school that entire semester. I tried to get a minimum wage job in New Orleans, which didn't even work out for a semester. I finally got one and saved, like working at a t-shirt shop, just enough to be able to get in school. But I actually met your best friend, who became my mentor, and that's how I met Soledad, through the foundation. It's kind of funny how things kind of trip you up and land in the right spot. So my teacher was Soledad's best friend, Kim Bondi, who used to be an executive producer for CNN and vice president. And I came to her class the first day and I said, I really have been through some things, and I made it to your class. I said, but I can't afford my book until I get my first paycheck. And she was like, okay, well, maybe this class doesn't need a book. I was like, this is my kind of teacher. So she taught the entire class without a book. She kind of changed the curriculum. She's like, I'm really just doing this for one semester while I get my MBA. Well, I thought, what is kind of the luck that she's my teacher? So she really took me under her wing, and it honestly changed my life. She became like a mother figure to me. I know she wants me to say sister figure, either one. And
she would say, this is my best friend, so she would say, younger sister figure.
There you go. My older sister, and introduced me to Soledad, which was amazing. She was just supposed to be one of our guest speakers one day in class, and I was super excited to meet her, but I didn't think anything would come of it. And so Soledad goes, well, it was really nice to meet you. You should come intern at CNN. And I'm like, right, sure. I'm a junior in college, barely making it to class every day, can't afford any books. But she followed up. I said, I would love to come intern. So finally I confessed to her I had no money to stay anywhere in New York. I had no money to rent anywhere to stay for a summer. So she goes, okay, you can stay at my apartment. I was like, once again, I'm like, Ma, this lady keeps telling me all this stuff. But then I was like, I'm gonna show up in New York and be put into like sex slavery or something. Like, Soledad O'Brien is not inviting me to her real apartment. It was the house where her family lived. She gave me the keys on the very first day. She's like, all right, have a good summer, you know, I'll be checking in and out on you. It was unbelievable. And when I tell the story to people, their faces are like yours are now. Like, I don't understand either. I wish I could explain why this happened to me. But it does just go to show that your obstacles are good and they're for a reason. You know, it really made me feel good about all the time periods when I was like, how am I going to make it? Why do all of these things keep happening to me? I'm not asking for the world. I just want to finish college.
You know, the thing I'll say from my perspective, and she was amazing, and she's been such a joy to work with, and she's really paid it back. I mean, when she comes and talks to our girls at the events that we do, it's just so powerful. But I'll tell you why Kim and I really stuck with you, is that she had a lot of really bad crap happen, and her attitude was awesome, right? She never once said, you know, hey, woe is me, I feel bad about myself, I deserve, I am owed. I mean, literally, and we were just like, here's a girl who's killing herself. You know, it had one car in the family, right? So in order for her to go to college, her mom had to drop her off. Here's a college girl. Her mom is dropping her off at college, and she'd be waiting for her mom to pick her up at the end of the day. And never a word, never once did I hear her say, I hate this, I'm sick of this, I'm so mad. It was always like, well, you know, really, I feel lucky that my mom's willing to pick me up so that I can attend classes. I mean, her attitude was just everything. And so often I think when you're trying to show people like a tangible representation about what can happen when you really, and it's hard, right? It's hard when you feel like it has sucked, and it's hard to have a good, happy feeling, but boy, I gotta tell you, it is the reason that we picked her as a scholar, and that every step of the way we gave her opportunities, because she is just a joy, and it's something that just transmits to other people. So I always tell my kids, you know, when people say, hey, have a great attitude, it's really this story, because that's what kind of opens up your blessings, I think. People see like, okay, we can help on that. Cameron I've known since she was a little girl, because her mom and I are friends, and Cameron had both the great fortune and a little bit of the great misfortune of going to a very expensive college, because she's kind of brilliant. She is a graduate of Princeton University, where she was an expert in the classics, because Latin could come back.
Yeah, right. It is.
So we can compare that to the number of English majors who raise their hands. Where are our Latin concentrators? Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, right there.
Oh.
So Cameron, talk to me a little bit about the challenges that you had through also, you know, Princeton, not that many black people, and also, and the community grew up. So walk me through some of the things that were challenging for you as you were navigating the high school, college, real life work experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of have a propensity to go after things that don't have the best safety nets. So studying ancient Latin and ancient Greek wasn't necessarily the best signifier to my parents that I was looking for a super lucrative job upon graduation. Wanting to go into journalism was yet another signifier. And then wanting to join a startup right after graduation was also not really, it didn't really clue them into the right things. So I was really grateful in terms of being able to use the foundation to have really great mentors who, you know, kept me on a really great path and, you know, showed me, if you want to do this, then maybe you should do this first, and, you know, have people that I could ask real questions to, and also be surrounded by like-minded women who, you know, are also trying to figure things out for themselves. I tried not to have to, you know, look back over my shoulder all of the time and, you know, worry about money, but that was a huge problem. And, it, you know, no matter how much you really want to ignore it, it's a reality that you can't escape. And it's a lot of pressure on my parents. It's a lot of pressure on me. I was working maybe 20 hours a week during school. And luckily I was able to find, you know, a group of friends who, you know, were similarly minded in that sense, and a real strong working community at Princeton. They actually have a lot of broad socioeconomic representation, so that was also really helpful in getting through school. But it's really due to the foundation that I was able to kind of stay grounded, stay focused, and come up with real life plans for myself.
Great. Well, what do you guys think about in terms of like the future. You're all at this sort of cusp age. We have 2 graduates, so there are alumni in the foundation, and Ariana, who's a senior, so we're happy to get her off of our rolls, because Smith is not cheap. When I started the foundation, really, and my husband was helping me, I remember we're the very first young woman we had, and I said, we're going to send this girl through school. My husband's like, we have 4 children. Like, what? We have to send them to school. What are you thinking about? But every single year, as we have really remarkable young women who just need some support, who really need, you know, and I guess I thought originally that what you all needed was tuition help, which is important. But ultimately, it felt to me like actually it was the mentoring part and the kind of the guidance that ended up being the most important thing. That, you know, sometimes mailing a check to someone, which is super helpful, is not everything. I know that I look back at, I mean, what we tried to do with this foundation was recreate what I had in my family, which my parents were very solidly middle class, but just the support net, you know, this idea of people who really literally would say, no, you can just put your head down and you know, work your way through it. You can do it, you can do it. So many of our scholars, I think, don't necessarily, and all of you have very, like, really great, I know all your moms, and I know your moms are phenomenal, but for many of our scholars, they don't necessarily have that backup. You know, they don't have those folks who say, listen, I know you and you can do it, and that's the thing that helps you through really, really tough times. As you guys move through your careers and move through the end of your schooling, what worries you? What are you concerned about?
You look like you're thinking.
Is it quiet because there's nothing, or is it quiet because the list is so long?
Yeah, I don't know if we have enough time. I mean, I'm worried, of course, going into my last year of college. Everyone wants to know my post-grad plans, and while I am very sure that I want to go to law school and become a lawyer, it's still very scary. But I, you know, because of the foundation, I've been fortunate to go to a school like Smith, which empowers women every day. And that was so important to me to be able to go to Smith, especially as a gay woman, to go to a school like Smith that was so LGBT friendly, that was women everywhere, and it was just amazing. And I think going into my last year, I'm not as worried because I do have such great support. There was a moment I always remember from my first year of college where I was sitting trying to write an essay, and I get a phone call from Soledad, and she asked me just how I was doing. And I told her I was really struggling because, you know, I was in a school, I'm an English major, where apparently when everyone was 16 in my school, they had time to like read the Odyssey 14 times.
Oh my God, that happened to me in college.
And I was like,
what
were you doing?
I read the Odyssey in the original. You're like, what?
Like, you know, when I was 15, I had time to kick back with some Steinbeck and just, you know, enjoy it. And I was just like, where were you? I was like, weren't you in school? And Soledad talked to me about, you know, how challenging it was for her when she went to college, and kind of realizing that a lot of people are faking it. They read most of it on SparkNotes. And so that was a really big moment for me, and it's a moment I've carried with me through my time at Smith, and kind of realizing that an amazing woman like Soledad, who has gotten as far as she has, doesn't, you know, you don't get that far without struggling as well. And that's something that I think of constantly, and knowing that no matter what happens, whether I fail or succeed, I'm always going to have that support.
Yeah, but you're not going to fail because we're putting you through college. Blah, blah, blah.
I gotta stay humble. I still have to say it.
What concerns do you have, Shia? I mean, when you're thinking long range about your future?
One of my immediate is I've been a mentor through the organization now for about a year, and I still aggravate Soledad and my mentor Kim so much. I'm always like, when she first asked me to be a mentor, I was like, you really want me to be a mentor? Am I ready for that step yet? So my mentee is going to be a sophomore at Dillard University in New Orleans, and sometimes I just feel like I need support to help support her. But it's good because the ladies are always still there to help me. I think my main concern now is just trying to be as great to her as you all were to me. You know, what to tell her, and she's so funny. She started calling me mom sometimes. She is one who does not have a mother figure.
It's aging, isn't it? When someone who's a grown person calls you mom, you're like, okay, stop that.
It's the first time in my life I've ever felt old. I don't know these nay-nay dances she keeps doing with me. She always has a date. She's always Snapchatting us. And I'm very not TV, you know, rated when I'm not on TV. So I'll look over and she's Snapchatting and sending out to all of her friends. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm just talking to you. ooh, you can't send this to everyone. I don't know. I can't cook. I've tried to cook for her. We threw it away. I made her Rice Krispies. But I'm trying to develop that maternal side. But she's the absolute sweetest. She just calls me mom. I just want to really give back genuinely like you all did for me. So that's what I'm really focused on right now.
And how about for you, Cameron?
I think kind of similarly, I want to put myself in a good place, and I want to be able to build myself in a place where I'm able to pay it forward. Like, more than anything, I'm really, really inspired by what the foundation was able to do for me. So what I'm working towards now, and everything that I'm trying to mold myself to be, is kind of so that I'm able to do something for someone else and be able to be a mentor to someone and be able to have someone look up to me, because that was the kind of like one of my biggest blessings growing up.
Well, I think I would just say two things about that. The first is really, there's no rule book. I think mentoring is a lot about just listening to people and helping them find help. I mean, I think that one of the things Kim and I did was just bounce off each other, like, hey, I've got this girl, can you help in this way? I mean, and that's kind of always my message for people, is that it's actually so easy. I think sometimes we make mentoring seem much harder than it is. It really is about saying, yeah, I have a place where you can stay, because it's impossible to rent a place in New York if you're going to take some classes. Or, yeah, I can spend half an hour giving you some advice. Or, yes, I have a friend who's looking for someone to do such and such in their shop, and I know you need a little job. I mean, to me, it just seems so, the things that you described as big really struck me as really little. And I think you can, I don't know that, I used to think about philanthropy that you had to be like, once I make this much money and I am here, then I shall be able to, and it actually isn't that way. Our best mentors are people who just give their time, who really just give that emotional support and connection and say, I got you. I remember at one point, Cameron was working on an essay, and she emailed it to me, and I was helping her make some changes on my BlackBerry and sending it back.
This was at 4 a.m. This was not a random 24-hour.
But I was a morning TV anchor, right? So that was my day. 4 a.m. I was up. And I remember thinking, like, this is so easy. If you don't have someone who can read your essay, right? Like, I could send my essay to my older sister who had taken this class at Harvard a few years before me. But if you don't have that person, well, who's going to help you? So it didn't take half an hour. It was actually very straightforward. And so the message I'm always trying to give about mentoring is really a lot of things I learned, which is, it's not about having a lot of money, it's not about being established, it's not about philanthropy with a capital P. It really is just about saying to somebody, what can I do to help you? And if I can't personally help you, here are the people who I think we can call to get you this next step that you want. So to me, that's been sort of the real blessing for me in all of this, is kind of how easy it is to help a young woman. We focus on young women invest in their futures. It's really about sort of time served. Any final topics before we lose the stage that we move forward in?
I'd love to know when the first time you realized that you were a mentor to someone was. Like, did it happen? Did you happen upon it? Was it like, oh, this woman looks up to me? Because you do it for so many people now, but was there kind of a turning point?
The first time it was really strange for me was, I remember I had been working in television for a while, and a young woman came up to me and said, oh my God, and talked as if we knew each other and hugged me, and she said, that advice you gave me about dropping out of nursing school, and I was just like, I literally have no recollection of this conversation at all. Like, I mean, I'm not even sure what state we're talking about. Like, I have no, and it really reminded me that those little moments, because you said, you told me, follow your passion, that your gut will be very clear with you, that if you know in your heart that this is not what you want to do, it's not going to work out. Like, if you know now clearly you don't want to do it, I am just telling you, it will not work out. I had been pre-med in college, and pretty quickly I realized it wasn't something that I was going to do. I wasn't passionate about it. I was able to forge another career, one that I really loved through the great times and the terrible times, being fired on live TV a couple of times. Doesn't feel that good? So I really felt like at every time, if you loved the gig, it didn't really matter. Like, if you really loved what you were doing, it was always going to be fine. And so when this young woman stopped me, it made me realize that the power of the advice you gave people. Because a conversation that I had no recollection at all, she had really taken it to heart, and she had moved on it. And so I really now take those interactions very seriously. I really try to make sure that anytime I'm giving anybody some advice, that it's thoughtful, and that I'm really helping them with the things that I have learned. It's funny, I don't really think of myself as a mentor. I have 4 kids. I'm so busy. I'm so crazy busy. I started my company about 18 months ago. I run around like a chicken with, all the time. I mean, so I really don't feel like I'm a mentor. I feel like if someone comes to me with a question, I can give them decent advice and send them on their way.
And how do you decide which girls are for the foundation? You kind of talked about choosing me because you liked my positive attitude, but people don't know how many girls you help, like you said, with advice who struggle. How do you pick 25 out of those?
I mean, we have 25 scholars every year, and it's, I guess I defined it as, I want those young women, we focus on women, we'd love to one day expand into young men, who are killing themselves to get an education. Who really sort of say, like, who are doing all the things that even when there's not necessarily the hope of it happening. I'll give you an example. A young woman named Terry who graduated from Spelman last year. I was her commencement speaker, so I got to hand her her degree. It was a wonderful experience. And I remember we met in the parking lot of a McDonald's. And she came to me and she said, I need $6,284 to go to college. She had been in the top 10 of her class in New Orleans, in a pretty crappy high school in New Orleans. And her mom had abandoned the family after Katrina, and so she used to sleep on the couches of friends in order to get through high school. And I said to her, oh, you're so lucky. It's so amazing that people let you sleep on the couch. That's so great. And she looked at me and she said something like, well, you know the kind of people who'll let you do that. And I just broke my heart. It was like, oh my God. And I remember thinking, like, what kind of girl kills herself to just get through high school without anybody ever saying, hey, great job, or oh, we're so proud, top 10, oh my goodness, wow, nothing. And then to go and apply to college with not a chance at all of going, with no money. And then to meet someone in the parking lot of a McDonald's and say, I need to send a check in for $6,824, within the day after tomorrow, or I'll lose my spot. To me, that's a girl who's going to succeed because she's doing everything that she can do. And that's the people we pick. Like, she's doing everything possibly that she can do. And if she's doing that, then I can step in and do, frankly, the easy part, right? Which is writing the check and saying, okay, now, here's what you need to do as a scholar. We're going to support you. So I always felt like those people kind of rise to the top. And it was never about what's your GPA, are you the smartest in the class, are you, did you read the Odyssey and the original, did you hang out with Steinbeck? It was always about, how badly do you want it? And how much do you want to change your life through education? To me, that was always the thing. So I thank you ladies for the questions. I thank you guys for listening to us this morning. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.